In my own work, I keep one foot in the Christian debate, debating atheists. This Tuesday, I'll be in Tampa, Florida, debating Michael Shermer, the editor of Skeptic. He seems to be come back for his regular biannual beating, so I'm very happy to administer it. But I also keep a foot in the cultural and political debates because those have such a huge impact on us. And just this week, I'm going to have a new book out. It's called The Roots of Obama's Rage. The book is not out. I'll be Wednesday, I believe, or Thursday, doing the whole hour on Glenn Beck, discussing the ideas in the book. But it's already in a big firestorm of controversy because I published a short adaptation of it in the on the cover of Forbes, the current issue. And so far, I have been denounced 3 times by the White House. The White House press secretary, Robert Gibbs, has been hurling his characteristic Lilliputian arrows at me. And then the equally impressive Maureen Dowd of the New York Times had a full column on the book that isn't out yet in last week's paper. Now, why all this palpitation? And the reason is the subject is very mysterious. Here's what I mean. 2 years into the presidency, it's a big question, who is Obama? He was actually the least known man ever to set foot in the White House. Just a couple of years previously, he was a senator, and before that, a state senator, a virtual unknown, because of a very peculiar set of circumstances and some of his own characteristic, unique strengths. He was able to walk into the highest office in the land. And yet, 2 years later, not only his critics, but his supporters are a little mystified about what motivates him, what drives him. Because we don't have a good handle on it, there are all kinds of floating theories about what motivates Obama. One of them, raised by Robert Gibbs, and completely preposterous, is the idea that I'm alleging that Obama is not an American. He's actually born in Kenya. Now, I don't know if Gibbs needs to put on some reading glasses, but if you read my article in Forbes, I don't even raise this subject. This birther issue is a non-issue for me. In my book, I say that, look, you can debate the long birth certificate, but when Obama was born in 1961, there was a notice in 2 Hawaiian newspapers noting his birth. So unless somebody was planning something way back then, the fact appears to be that Obama was born in Hawaii. It's not an issue of where he was born. Another theory is that Obama is a kind of a secret Muslim. He's actually Islamic. Why? Well, the evidence doesn't really come from him, but it comes from his father, Barack Obama Sr., who was raised as a Muslim, as well as his stepfather, Lolo Soetoro, who was also born a Muslim. But the evidence is overwhelming that both those men had no interest in Islam. By the time they were adults, his father had rejected Islam completely. Obama says he looked at a Muslim preacher a bit like a witch doctor, and there's no evidence that he practiced Islam a day of his adult life. His stepfather, the same. The Muslim theory on Obama is very weak. But I can kind of see why people allege that, because Obama does stuff that seems so odd that no other theory appears to account for it. So, for example, recently Obama gave a speech at Ramadan coming out for the Ground Zero Mosque. Now, why would a president do that? First of all, it's such a controversial issue, better to say nothing. I can't imagine David Axelrod or Rahm Emanuel, his top advisor, saying to Obama, "Mr. President, your poll ratings are falling, come out for the Ground Zero Mosque." And yet, he does it. Here's a much more disturbing incident. Last year, the Scottish government released a man, Abdel Megrahi, who is the Lockerbie bomber. This is the man who blew up Pan Am 270 over Lockerbie, Scotland. 270 people were killed, the vast majority of them Americans. He was tried, he was convicted, he was jailed. And then a doctor said, I think he's ill. I don't think he has many weeks to live. And the Scots said, well, maybe we should release him on compassionate grounds and send him back to Scotland. Send him back to Libya, I'm sorry. The Obama administration at the time issued a fierce protest, and rightly so. Here's a man directly implicated in killing a large number of Americans. Well, a few months ago, the London Times obtained a letter that Obama wrote to the Scottish government, actually saying privately, we do not mind if you release Abdel Megrahi. We would prefer that you keep him in Scotland rather than send him to Libya. And the Scottish government officials are quoted in the London paper saying, well, when we heard that the Americans don't really care, we went ahead and released the guy and sent him home. And by the way, although he supposedly had a few weeks to live, the guy is fully alive and walking around a free man in Libya today. So again, when people see this, Obama publicly objects, but privately is okay with the release of a terrorist, you'd say, why? Who would do that? The other theories about Obama don't explain it. So maybe he has to be a Muslim. So I can see why these wrong theories float, because there's no good theory that seems to account for it. The final and perhaps the most common theory about Obama is that he's a socialist. Not a radical Marxist, but he's kind of a European-style socialist, really a big government guy. It's maybe something he picked up in college. Now, this theory is not flat out wrong, but in my view, it is incomplete. It doesn't fully account for what Obama is doing. Actually, even if it could explain his economic policy, it couldn't explain his foreign policy. Socialism is a theory of government. And second, if you look at Obama, he doesn't sound like a socialist. In fact, if you know the old socialists, going all the way back to Marx, but continuing in the 20th century, people like Eugene Debs and Norman Thomas, first of all, socialists, their primary focus is the poor. Basically, when you hear a socialist talk about the poor, he becomes very animated, he begins to sweat, he foams at the mouth. By and large, that's socialism. It's a passionate engagement with the poor. How many speeches has Obama given about the poor? As far as I know, none. When he talks about the poor on the rare occasions he does, it looks like he's reading from his tax return. There's absolutely no animation about it. Now, Obama is very animated when he is talking about Wall Street or the banks or the insurance companies. When he is lashing out at the people on top, he's animated. I agree. That's the time when he talks about kicking their butts. That's really what gets him going. But at the bottom end, no passion whatsoever. Something deeper is going on, and I think what I'd like to do is introduce you to a new idea of what that is. In thinking about Obama, when I first saw Obama, I found an eerie similarity between Obama and myself. We're the same age. We're born in the same year, 1961. We went to college the same year and both graduated from an Ivy League college in 1983. It's also the case that we got married the same year, 1992, and we both have a mixed race kind of background. Obama's mom is white, his father is an African from Kenya. My wife is from Louisiana. We have a mixed race daughter. So there's a kind of weird kind of kinship, if you will, between me and Obama. Here's something even more interesting. I'm an American citizen. I like to think I'm fully assimilated. But the fact is, there's a residue of me that is completely foreign. Why? Because I was born in Bombay, India. I grew up in a different world. I did not come to America until the age of 17, when I came as an exchange student.